Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm watching the little wheel spin and it's Happy Fairy Friday. I am so thrilled to be back. We had me and the fairies. We had a wonderful summer off, or not a full summer, but whatever. And while I was connecting with them out in the wilds, internet wasn't working and they just said take a break. So I did. I hope some of you, well, I know some of you were playing the spin spin the cursor game to find a fairy message for yourself on my website. And I'm so happy that people enjoyed doing that. Anyway, it is a beautiful September morning as I look out my window and I'm back with, oh, Margaret Sample here. Hello, hello, hello. Coming to you live from the beautiful Niagara region of Ontario in Canada. So I Facebook changes things all the time. So I don't know if I'm going to get to see your comments or not today, but I will look for them. It's so we'll just see how that all goes. In any case, please, if you enjoy it, give me a thumbs up or a heart. I always look for those afterwards as well. It always kind of makes me feel like you. I just heard Sally Fields in my head. You like me, you really like me, you really like the messages from the fairies. So, using Brian Froud's beautiful Fairies Oracle deck, I am back planning to bring you a message every Friday morning at 11:11 Eastern from the Fairy Kingdom. Just shuffling the cards to see who's going to come forward today. Ah, one card, and we need him these days. Arval Parrot. Arval Parrot. So, Arval is one of the helpline troop. And the helpline troop are those, what we think of the wee folk of fairy, brownies or sprites or pixies. They can be working on their own, they can be working in groups. They are trying to help us. Now, sometimes they add to the confusion when they're trying to help, but their intentions are really good and they really are trying to be useful in our lives. They are associated, the helpline troop are associated with the 5 elements of fairy, which are water, air, earth, fire, and moonlight. They are full of life. They're generally sassy and mischievous, and we can meet with them anywhere, but particularly, as with all fairies, in the natural world, and they tend to work with natural magic. So, when you look at Arval, of course, the first thing you notice, he's pointing to his throat chakra. So, that little glowing light of communication. So, this is the 5th chakra, right? In the system that most of us are familiar with, the color is blue in this one. And Arval says that humans actually connect to each other and communicate from throat chakra to throat chakra, sometimes from this center, without words. Whenever I'm teaching about chakras, I always say the 5th one is communication, but it's to hear and to listen, to speak and communicate. Okay, so it is connected with both speaking and listening. Those are the 2 things that are connected with our throat chakra. So fairies are really great communicators. And when we don't pay attention to them, oh, they get our attention. So they use words, but they also communicate non-verbally. And probably more of their communication is nonverbal, kind of like a cat, for example, or a dog, right? Animals, because they don't have speech for the most part, communicate with us other ways. There's nothing more communicative than an animal looking at you, and you can tell they're giving you a message. And if you will open your heart, open your throat chakra to receive it, you'll get it. You'll know, oh, I'm in pain, or oh, I'm hungry, or oh, I love you so much. Right? That's what they will communicate to us. People communicate non-verbally as well. There are people who are nonverbal for different reasons. Sometimes it is an ongoing condition, but they will often find ways to communicate with us. Sometimes it's just because they're in trauma or in stress of the moment. I never forget when my son he wasn't even, well, he must have been about a year old. Anyway, it was at, maybe he was just over a year old, and it was Thanksgiving because there was turkey involved. And we were sitting a couple of spaces apart at the table, big dinner table, because he was beside one of his grandparents, and anyway, everybody wanted to sit beside the little one. And all of a sudden, he was looking at me, and he wasn't saying anything, and he just was looking at me, and I jumped up and I grabbed him and I flicked him and I whacked him. He had a bone or something stuck in his throat, right? And he couldn't talk, but he could communicate. And down the table, I felt him looking at me. I felt he needed my help, and I jumped into action. I'm really good in a crisis. I jumped into action. I dealt with it. He started to cry, and then I started to cry. Anyway, side story. Funny how these things pop into our brains. Arval is saying we need to communicate and listen for communications. Fairies will speak to us in the rustle of leaves, or the patterns of clouds, or falling petals around us. Here where I live, it would more be the falling of leaves these days. I always, when I'm out walking and a leaf is falling down, we used to believe that if you could catch a falling leaf, you would have a wish. So that's kind of fun to do with kids too. Fairies will often speak to us through our dreams and our daydreams. Now, so will spirits who want to connect with us. Our spirit guides will connect with us that way. Angels not so much, but fairies absolutely. So that it's really, pay attention to your dreams. Now, we're in the fall season, right? Heading into it. We're a little ahead of it, but leaves are starting to turn a little bit. So this is the time of year when the veils between the worlds thin. And so it's easier for us to receive communications from the other side. So particularly pay attention to any dreams or any interesting things that may be happening, because they are communicating with us different ways. One way that I have had communication recently, and I know one friend in particular, but others as well, is with smells showing up. They call that clairalience. It's one of the clairs, right? Clairvoyance, clairaudience. Anyway, clairalience is smelling things that have no physical apparent cause. So you may be smelling something that's not there. So see if there is a message that you can connect with that smell, or a person who may have passed over into spirit, because you'll be getting, so it's a way of connecting with us, right? It's a way of communicating. Remember that communication is both speaking and listening. And when Arval shows up, he's saying it is time to communicate clearly. And this can be hard work. Especially when many of us are in disagreement these days about different things going on in the world. Active listening is part of it. And be articulate, use your words, choose them carefully. Be willing to calmly debate issues and explore ideas with others. Be open. Now, sometimes you may be in strong disagreement with what someone else is saying, but you can always say, let me think about that. I will get back to you. You can go off, you can do some reading about what they're talking about and see whether or not what they're saying rings true with evidence that you find. But you don't need to dismiss each other. We don't need to dismiss each other. I'm going to include myself in that. And we also can still love each other, even if we think the other person is out to lunch. We think that they're getting information from sources that we don't consider valid, or they don't consider our sources valid. We can still have lines of communication, and we can also agree not to talk about certain things because it's they used to say never discuss politics, religion, sex, or money. That was, those topics were verboten at dinner tables, and you can see where there might be some wisdom in some of that, right? But it's what are the things that also make your heart sing? Talk about those. Talk about, gardens. Talk about your loved ones. Talk about things that are going right in the world. Look for those things, and really focus on joy when you're communicating. Really be kind and focus on joy. What else do I want to say? Ooh. Also watch for body language. Look for language cues like incomplete sentences, unfinished thoughts. What's being communicated though not spoken? Sometimes people have real trouble articulating things that they feel deeply for, especially things where we think, oh, that's sappy, or I'm being mushy. Sometimes it's hard for people to say out loud, I love you. So look for how else they're saying it. I was visiting my mom, and my mom, even though, like right now, I'm not eating flour or sugar, I take care of my body that way. And my mom was offering me cookies, even though she knows I'm not eating them, but she likes them. And what I understood really clearly was every time she was saying, do you want a cookie? She was really saying, I love you. So if you can understand sometimes what's not being spoken, that's also important. Tears are a real sign of truth. So I'm going to just underline that and recognize that sometimes people are saying, I love you, even if it sounds like, why aren't you doing this? Or whatever. I'm saying, people are saying, I love you. They care about you. Okay? Often that's what's going on. Now, sometimes when Arval shows up, there's miscommunication, or there's lost emails, or there's words that have been texted and misunderstood, or whatever, this misinformation pops in, and it's like you've just got to parse it out, right? Guys, I'm sorry to tell you, Mercury's going retrograde again, coming up, so there will be even more misinterpreted communication. So just be aware of that and look beyond. See how kind he is. Now, the other thing is, look at the size of his ears, because communication, again, I know I've said this, I'm just going to underline it. It's listening too. My dad used to say a poem, the wise old owl sat on the oak. The more he heard, the less he spoke. The less he spoke, the more he heard. Why can't we be like that wise old bird? And just recognizing that listening, saying, I hear you, is often so important in our lives. And it must be right now, because Arval has come forward. He has some interesting sayings, does Arval? See if I can remember them. One is, it takes two to say yes, but one to say no. They should teach that in every school, right? Informed consent. It takes all it takes is one person to say no. Um, oh, one that we all need to be reminded of. 'Tis easier to give advice than to receive it. I find that true for most people I know, and including myself, right? Um, yeah, so those are the ones that are coming to mind right now. Anyway, anything else? He says, be kind. Be kind in your communications. What isn't it, the Bambi movie? If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Right? That's what the bunny says his mom taught him. So, just sometimes, sometimes silence is golden, but it's also important to communicate. Especially communicate love right now. I really, they keep saying in my ear, say it over and over again. Tell people you love them. Tell people you care about them. It's an important thing to do. Okay, that is it for Fairy Friday this week. I invite you to visit my website, www.margaretsample.com, if you want to look up past Fairy Fridays, or if you want to see what I'm up to in my store. I've been making necklaces. I don't have them posted yet. That's on my list, my to-do list, of getting photos up of the ones that I have ready. You can see them behind me, a whole basket of them actually. And I've started making some bracelets again. Yes, look up my Spirited Inside Hive. And I wish you all a wonderful weekend, a wonderful week, and a happy, happy Fairy Friday. Be well. Love to all. Bye for now.